For 20 years, Mr. Elbert E.J. Hayes led the church choir in a sleepy Mississippi town. Everyone trusted him with their children's voices and Sunday morning souls. But when a mysterious envelope shows up in the deacon's mailbox marked confidential, sealed federal records, terrifying past is exposed. E.J. wasn't just a reformed man. He was never supposed to be released. Before we uncover today's case, a quick reminder. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a single clue, twist, or breakthrough in the stories to come. Now, let's dive into the case. The envelope arrived with no return address, just a smudged postmark from somewhere in Louisiana. It was thick manila and damp at the corners from the morning dew. The bold black ink on the front read only, Deacon Thurman Jackson, for your eyes only. He should have tossed it out. That's what he told himself later. Should have dropped it in the church shredder with the rest of the anonymous junk that showed up from time to time. But curiosity and his old arthritis kept his fingers fumbling, slicing the paper open with the edge of a communion knife. The moment he slid the first page free and saw the faded Bureau of Prison seal, the tremor in his hands wasn't from the arthritis anymore. Mayfield, Mississippi, population 3,041. The town of Mayfield only knew E.J. Hayes in a certain light. Arms raised in praise every Sunday morning, long dark overcoat in winter, choir robes pressed crisp, punctual, faithful, dependable. A man who volunteered at the high school after-school program. A man who never missed a single Easter sunrise service in 20 years. Even the town's gossip circles had given up trying to pin anything on him. Clean as a preacher's kitchen, folks would say. So when the whisper spread on a humid Wednesday evening that something strange went down at N.T. Olive Church, nobody knew what to make of it. Except Renee Wallace. She heard it from her cousin Shauna, who cleaned the fellowship hall on Wednesdays. Heard it whispered fast, like it might turn into a sin if said too slow. Girl, they say Deacon Jackson passed out after reading some folder. Say it had E.J.'s name in it, his real name. Renee was already halfway out the door with her phone when the word's real name hit her. She hadn't planned to be back in Mayfield at all. After 10 years in Atlanta Law School, public defense, a messy burnout case involving a dirty judge, she'd come back broken, broke, and quietly bitter. But Mayfield didn't ask questions. It gave her room to breathe. And more importantly, it gave her time to write. Now freelancing for a regional true crime podcast and a few local papers, Renee had been looking for something beyond petty shoplifting reports and long-retired folklore about old lynching trees and cursed wells. But this wasn't folklore. This was E.J. She pulled into the church parking lot just before dusk. The gravel crunched under her tires, the weight of the moment pressing harder with each step toward the sanctuary. The door was ajar. Inside, a fan hummed weakly as it oscillated over a folding table. The scent of lemon oil polish clung to the pews. And in the far corner, under the pale light of a dying chandelier, sat Deacon Thurman Jackson, still holding the envelope. His eyes were glassy, a glass of water untouched. "Deacon," she called softly. He looked up, startled, then deflated the way old men do when they know they've seen too much to explain. "I shouldn't have opened it," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Renee stepped closer. "Is it true?" He didn't answer. So she walked to the table, laid her phone down beside the thick folder, and asked, "Can I read it?" Deacon Jackson hesitated, then nodded, just once. And just like that, her world flipped. Inside the folder, name, Elbert Jeremiah Hayes, Dobb. August 17th, 1956. Inmate number, 290,441F. Facility, USP Pollock. Status, escaped, presumed deceased. Sentence, life without parole, first-degree murder. Case year, 1982. Renee blinked twice, her breath catching in her throat. Presumed deceased? A sticky note clipped to the top. Unsealed by court order. Records released via pending doju audit, and scribbled in red ink at the corner. They buried this. Look deeper. She looked up at Deacon Jackson. Who sent this? He shook his head slowly. Don't know. It came in the early mail. Said urgent. I thought it was about the budget committee. Renee flipped another page. Mugshot. Younger, leaner, but unmistakably the same steady eyes. Elbert J. Hayes. Not just a man of God. Not just a choir director. Not just a mentor. A murderer. A fugitive. And according to the United States government, a ghost. Outside, the cicadas began their slow, angry wail. Inside, Renee's mind raced. She thought about the times E.J. sat next to her on the church steps when she was 16, smoking stress away with menthols she wasn't supposed to have. The way he quoted James Baldwin instead of Psalms. The way he watched everything quietly, like he'd seen it all once before. She remembered the kindness, the guidance. But now, she had a headline. She had a man no one was supposed to find. And she had to decide whether she was going to protect the man who saved her, or expose the fugitive who fooled them all. Renee couldn't sleep. She'd left the church around 9, folder zipped in her bag, her mind pounding through names, dates, and faces like a runaway train. The hum of the ceiling fan in her bedroom back at her mama's house did little to muffle the noise inside her skull. Elbert Jeremiah Hayes. Life without parole. Presumed dead. Living under their noses for 20 years. She stared at the ceiling, remembering all the Sundays he hummed spirituals under his breath like secrets wrapped in melody. How his voice carried a sadness she never asked about. She'd always thought that sorrow came from loss. A wife, maybe. A child. Something personal. But now she knew better. It came from a prison he carried inside him, one the rest of them had just never seen. By sunrise, Renee was parked across the street from Mt. Olive Church, black coffee in one hand, the other clutching her phone as she scrolled the public records database from her reporter login. Nothing. No mentions of an Elbert J. Hayes anywhere in Mayfield. No change of name request. No death certificate ever filed. Just a blank where a man's story should be. Until her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You need to be careful where you dig. Some things got buried for a reason. The message disappeared before she could screenshot it. She blinked, fingers hovering. A threat? A warning? Or maybe just a ghost letting her know he knew she was looking. Mount Olive's Thursday morning cleaning crew. 3 older women in pink gloves and church T-shirts watched her walk up the steps like she was carrying the devil's breath on her shoulders. They whispered behind their masks, stopping only when she caught their eyes. One of them, Sister Loretta, leaned on her mop and clucked her tongue. Girl, I told your mama you was goin' stir up mess soon as you got back. Renee gave her a tight smile. Is E.J. in? Gone since early, Loretta said, eyes narrowed. Didn't lead morning prayer. That man don't miss no prayer. Did he say where he was going? Loretta scoffed. He don't answer to me, maybe. But he looked different. Shook, like a man looking over his shoulder. Renee nodded once and walked past them, heading straight into the office. The scent of pine cleaner hit her hard clean, but nervous. E.J.'s desk was empty. A folder half open with a list of choir hymns. A sticky note that simply said, Wednesday, Clara's. Clara's Diner. She found him alone, at his usual booth near the back window, tea untouched, eyes scanning something in a leather-bound journal. When she slid in across from him, he didn't flinch. He just stared at her. Deacon Jackson gave you the file, didn't he? Renee didn't answer. She placed her phone on the table, face down. E.J. exhaled through his nose. Didn't think it'd surface. Not like this. You were sentenced to life without parole, she said. The file says you escaped, but the government thinks you're dead. He looked away for a moment. Then maybe I am. No, she snapped. You're sitting right here in Mayfield, leading the choir, teaching kids how to keep rhythm and respect. E.J. nodded slowly, like he knew it all too well. So tell me, she said, her voice low. Tell me what really happened in 1982. He looked her dead in the eye then, and for the first time, she saw it. Not just sadness, not just weight, but wariness and fear. I didn't kill that man, Renee, but I was there. The words came slow. He was 26, working a trucking route across the Delta, making cash on the side, fixing car engines, staying out of trouble or trying to. Then a fight broke out at a rest stop outside Shreveport. Two men arguing over a card game. One pulled a knife, the other pulled a gun. E.J. was caught in the middle. There were 5 of us, but only 2 witnesses stuck around. The rest ran. He stayed. I called 911, waited on the hood of my truck, and when the cops came, I thought they'd see the truth. But the other black man involved was already dead, and the white guy, the one with the knife, vanished before backup arrived. Someone had to take the fall. I was convenient. The murder charge came fast, the trial faster. No real defense, just a tired public defender who told him to take the plea. But E.J. refused. I said I was innocent. So they gave me life. He paused, eyes glossed. Then came the fire. It was 1993. A prison riot. A wing went up in flames. In the chaos, a few prisoners slipped away. One of them was Elbert Hayes. But the record said he never made it. They marked him dead. And someone wanted it to stay that way, he said. I don't know who. I just know I woke up in a drainage ditch outside Baton Rouge. Free, but hunted. He made his way north. Found a crooked preacher who owed him a favor from back in the day. Papers. A new name. A new life. Mayfield was quiet. Just quiet enough. I never looked back. Renee sat still, her pulse roaring. Her voice caught in her throat. She thought about the kids E.J. had helped, the funerals he'd sung at, the donation drives he organized when Katrina hit, the single moms he drove home after choir practice just to make sure they were safe. All of it real. All of it built on a lie. Why didn't you ever fight it? The record. The conviction. He looked down. Because I thought I was done fighting. I thought if I just lived right, maybe that could be enough. But someone out there didn't think so, Renee said quietly. Someone wants to burn this all down. E.J. nodded. And they're just getting started. The back room of Clara's diner felt like a confession booth. E.J. hadn't touched his tea. Renee's notepad sat untouched too. She wasn't taking notes anymore. She was listening, processing. But deep down, her lawyer instincts had already kicked in. What E.J. just described didn't sound like guilt. It sounded like scapegoating. Quick trial, no forensics, lost witness, forgotten file. A fire conveniently burning the paper trail? Her gut told her someone wanted him gone back then, and someone still wanted him erased now. The only question was, why now? Later that afternoon, Renee parked at the old library behind City Hall, a squat brick building that hadn't updated its carpet since the late 80s. She scanned her badge from the state press registry and signed in with the sleepy receptionist. I need access to court archives from 1982, she said. Shreveport region. Digital or microfiche? The woman blinked slowly. Oh, baby. You looking for ghosts? Renee smiled thinly. Aren't we all? Hours later, her eyes burned from scrolling ancient digital scans of court dockets. Nothing listed under Elbert Hayes. But then she tried something different searched by inmate number. 29044 1F. And there it was. State v. Hayes, Elbert J. Case closed. Life without parole. Evidence. Knife recovered. Gun never located. Key witness. Officer Daniel J. Vicks. Renee's brow furrowed. Vicks. That name ... wasn't common. And it wasn't unfamiliar. She opened her phone and searched the Mayfield Police Department's roster. There he was. Deputy Chief Daniel Vicks, retired, 2018. Still living in Mayfield. Still drawing a pension. And according to a Facebook post from last Easter still active, and T. Olive Church's Men's Fellowship Breakfast. Her heart thudded. Vicks was here. By nightfall, Renee was sitting on the hood of her car outside the corner gas station on Lambert Street, waiting. She didn't have to wait long. A dusty white pickup pulled in. The man who stepped out looked older, now late 60s, maybe early 70s, but she recognized the stiff posture and the sharp eyes beneath the cap. Renee slid off her hood and approached calmly. Deputy Chief Vicks? He turned, squinting. Yeah, I'm Renee Wallace. I think you testified in the Hayes case. 1982. Louisiana State Court. His face didn't change. I'm not looking for trouble, she added. Just truth. He looked her over, then back toward the pump, swiped his card, and said, That case was 40 years ago. You diggin' for redemption or revenge? Neither, she said. I'm diggin' for what's real. He laughed dryly. What's real ain't always what's legal, Miss Wallace. I read your statement. You claimed Hayes had gun residue on his hands, but the report never included the test. He kept pumping gas. That whole place was chaos. Blood, smoke, heat. You think we kept tidy notes? I think someone wanted him out of the way. Silence. Then, that man should have disappeared. It was a favor he got burned in that fire. Everyone got to sleep easier thinking he was gone. Her breath caught. So you knew he lived? Vicks capped the tank and turned slowly. I suspected. Saw a photo of a church program in a Facebook post some years back. That voice. That face. I knew. Renee stepped closer. Then why didn't you say something? His eyes hardened. Because we were told not to. By who? Vicks shook his head. You don't ask those kinds of questions when the badge signs your paychecks. You just stay out the way. You don't dig into old files. He leaned in then, voice low. But you already did, didn't you? Renee nodded slowly. Then you better pray to that same God he sings to, Vicks said, 'cause the folks who buried Elbert Hayes the first time, if they know he's back, they'll come to finish the job. That night, Renee couldn't shake his words. Her head spun with questions. Why protect EJ then, and not now? Why was someone leaking sealed documents now after 20 years? And who else in Mayfield knew? The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You were warned. Attached was a blurry photo. EJ, walking out of Clara's, her following him at a distance. And beneath it, one sentence. Next time, he won't walk away. She didn't sleep. Instead, she emailed a backup copy of the prison file to 3 separate cloud accounts. She added a note to her podcast producer. If anything happens to me, air this first. Then she pulled out a burner phone from her Atlanta days. One she hadn't used since the judge scandal. She dialed a number she'd sworn she never would again. It rang once. Then a voice. You said you'd never call. Renee whispered. I've got a case. A man buried by the state. Someone's trying to erase him again. Silence. Then, where do we start? The man who answered Renee's call went by Langston. She never knew if that was his first or last name. Back in Atlanta, he was a digital phantom part activist, part investigator, all shadow. He'd once helped her track a crooked judge laundering campaign donations through veterans' housing grants. That case nearly ended her career. Now he was her only lifeline. 3 days later, he arrived in Mayfield in a tan rental car, wearing a baseball cap and chewing a toothpick like it held secrets. He didn't bother with handshakes. "Show me the paper trail," he said. Renee led him to her makeshift workspace in the attic of her mother's house. Files, photos, maps. A corkboard showing names tied together with red threadvicks. E.J. Hayes. Angola Prison. The Bureau of Prisons. Even Mount Olive Church itself. Langston's eyes moved fast. "You're missing a name," he muttered. "Who ran Angola during the 1993 fire?" Renee searched, scanned documents. Found it. Warden C. Lamar Hollingshead. Langston smirked. "Bingo. That man got pulled into a quiet federal appointment 3 months later. Nobody looked close. And he signed the fatality report that listed E.J. as dead." Exactly. Because that riot wasn't just chaos, it was cover. They burned half a wing to erase records. Inmates like E.J.? Useful for black site programs. Off-the-books labor. False identities. If one of them slipped out in the fire, they just wrote him off. Renee felt sick. So E.J. didn't escape? He was discarded. Langston nodded. And now someone's clearing up loose ends. They traced the envelope's origin to a small legal office in Lafayette, Louisiana. The secretary there confirmed an anonymous man dropped off a sealed file asking them to mail it to a Mr. T. Jackson at Mount Olive Church. Said he was delivering justice. No name, no ID, just the message. Some lies rot if you don't dig them up. Renee and Langston pieced it together. One of the old inmates. Someone who did escape that fire. Someone trying to atone. They were the leak. But whoever ran the original cover-up, they wanted E.J. to stay buried. That night, Renee returned to the church. The sanctuary was dark, save for one flickering candle near the pulpit. E.J. stood alone, eyes closed, humming a low spiritual under his breath. The same one he used to calm her down when she was 16 and fighting the world. Only now, it sounded like a goodbye. "They know where I am," he said without turning. "I know," Renee said, "but we've got proof. We can fight this." He looked at her then, tired and hollow. "You don't understand, baby girl. I made peace with being gone. I built this life quiet so I could hear God when he finally called. But now," he gestured at the silence around him, "it's all noise again." Tears burned in her throat. "You don't have to run. We can go public. We have files. We have testimony. Langston knows how to leak it to the right people." E.J. shook his head. "They'll come for anyone near me. Deacon Jackson. You. These children I love like my own. You think they won't twist it? They'll say I faked everything. That I led this town under false witness." "You didn't lie," Renee said. "They lied about you." He smiled faintly. "That's not what headlines will say." At sunrise, Renee opened her laptop and uploaded everything to a secure server tied to 3 national outlets: ProPublica, Reveal, and the Marshall Project. She hit send all. Then she dialed her podcast producer. "This story's going live. Today. No edits." The fallout was immediate. National headlines screamed. "Dead inmate found alive after 30 years as church choir director." DOJ investigating Angola prison cover-up. Mayfield woman uncovers federal fraud buried since '93. Protests erupted outside former Warden Hollingshead's retirement home in Virginia. The Louisiana Attorney General launched a task force. Deputy Chief Vicks was pulled into questioning. Anonymous sources leaked dozens of sealed records tied to the same prison fire. And through it all, E.J. Hayes vanished. Left a letter for Renee, taped to the inside of MT, Olive's piano lid. "I didn't run this time. I just walked off stage. Let truth do the singing now." E.J. months passed. Mount Olive got a new choir director. Not as soulful, not as warm. But the kids still sang. And Renee? She kept writing. Her podcast became a national hit. She titled the breakout episode, "The Man They Declared Dead and the Music He Left Behind." Sometimes she drives past the diner, or the church, or the motel at the edge of town where a man like E.J. could have caught a bus and disappeared for good. But every so often, she finds a napkin on her windshield, a line scribbled in E.J.'s handwriting. Last one said, "You found me. Now find the others." And just like that, Renee knew her next story had already begun. The end. Some stories don't end with a verdict. They echo in quiet rooms, in broken trust, in lives forever altered. This wasn't just a case file. It was a warning about what happens when fear replaces facts, when systems protect themselves, and when good people look away because it's easier. What happened here could happen anywhere, because injustice doesn't need a reason, just an opening. So if this story reached you, don't let it vanish. Speak up. Share it. Start the ripple. Because every time we shine a light, we take power from the shadows. And maybe, just maybe, the next story won't end the same. Like, comment, share. Let your voice join the case.